You've spent an entire career fighting fires and rescuing the injured, sick, and dying. But that's all over now. What do you do when the sirens stop, you've hung up your gear, and you walk out of the firehouse for the last time? What do you do with your life when the smoke clears? Welcome back to the When the Smoke Clears podcast. I'm Russ Miles. I'm here with Tony Ben Cosme. Thank you again for tapping in and listening to us as we talk to another guest who has spent a good portion of his life in the fire service and has lived to tell the tale. So again, thank you all for listening in. Thank you for everyone who has purchased some swag. Again, we got hats, shirts, mugs, all of that available. Reach out to Tony or myself if you're interested in buying, or see the link at the end of the show if you're watching this on YouTube. And of course, you can check us out on all our social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all of that. So with all that being said, Tony, who do we have on the line today?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody again, Russ. It's been truly humbling. I probably say this all the time, and if you listen to all the shows, you heard me say, but I can't say thank you enough to all our listeners. And to the folks that haven't listened yet or have an opportunity, give us a shot. We got a lot of good content. We're going to try to give you some more stuff here to listen to in the future. And thanks again. So our next guest, I personally know this dude for a long time. He really good guy, very sharp. Retired after 30 years in Montgomery County Fire Rescue Services. Was a volunteer at Wheaton Rescue prior to that. Rescue squad in Montgomery County, Maryland. Retired as a captain, was part of the communications, did some time at ECC or public PSCC, our communications. Spent some time at USAR, deployed several times as part of the FEMA team, part of the USAR team, Maryland Task Force 1. Spent some time at FEI, or fire investigation. So he did a little bit of everything in his 30 years. He's now part of was when he retired, he was the president of the Montgomery County Career Firefighters Charitable Foundation. And without further wait, we're not going to wait anymore. We'd love to hear this man's story. Retired Captain Marc Worton. Thanks for coming, Mark.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be part of this.
Yes, it's been a little long time coming, and I know you've been a big supporter of our show. We thank you for that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We're glad we can finally have you on to hear your side of the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about where you were born, where you grew up, and what was life like for you coming up.
Sure. I was born and raised in Montgomery County. Lived in Aspen Hill area, 25's first due. Growing up there, my dad was a volunteer at Wheaton Rescue Squad. That's all I remember. Growing up is he was part of the Friday night crew, so my mom and I would go up there for dinner and see him on Friday nights. He'd spend the night, come home Saturday morning. That was my childhood, man. I just remember going to see him every day at the firehouse. My mom also worked for Montgomery County. She was the administrative aide at Wheaton Rescue Squad. She did 28 years there. My sister Debbie was a paramedic volunteer there. That was my upbringing, right? The rescue squad was all I knew. The fire department was all I ever wanted to do from the time I can remember. It was awesome. I remember, meeting some unbelievable people over the years. Guys like Jerry Reed, who was a very good family friend of ours. That was a longtime captain in the department. Mark Dempsey, who is still the volunteer chief of Wheaton Rescue Squad. Not only was he my brother-in-law for a while, he was the one that got me trained in the fire service. He took me under his wing when I went into Wheaton Rescue Squad, and he was my guy. I tell the story all the time. Master Firefighter Mark Davis from Station 18, Kensington guy. My sisters went to high school with him. Man, he was everything I wanted to be when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. I used to watch that guy. He was an athlete. He was a fireman. He drove cool cars. Man, I just wanted to be Mark Davis when I was a youngin'. And I got the opportunity to work with him, both as an officer and a firefighter, and that was a pretty cool experience for me over the years. But yeah, my childhood was good, man. I had great parents, got two sisters. My mom, as some of you know, was very well known throughout the department. Made a lot of friends through her. And I made a lot of mistakes that she knew about before I even knew anybody else knew, because the Ty DeMents and the Ray Sanchez and those guys, boy, they'd call my mom and rat me out in a heartbeat. But yeah, I grew up in the fire service. I didn't see any other way for me to go from the beginning. That was all I ever wanted to do, and I got the opportunity to live out that dream. So yeah, I live in Hagerstown now. We moved up here in about 2003, so been up here about 21 years. Yeah, that's where it all started for me.
Gotcha. So yeah, it was like you were destined to be in the fire department.
There was no doubt.
Born and bred. Yeah, born and bred.
Yep. When I graduated high school, all my friends were going to college, and I got hired by Bethesda Chevy Chase Rescue Squad as their paid staff. So I think I graduated high school in May, and I started there in July. George Pitts was old Geo was the guy hiring there, and I worked there from 89 to 92 when I got hired by Montgomery County. Myself, Chief Cooper was there with me. Steve Kisner was there with me. There's just a lot of guys that used that kind of as a stepping stone to get hired. But my buddies were going to college. I was going to work for the rescue squad. Right. That's all. That's kind of I knew that's what it was going to be.
Gotcha. So did you volunteer at the squad before you got hired there?
So I volunteered at Wheaton Rescue Squad from, I'd say, about 87 to 92. I got hired by BCC Rescue Squad as paid staff in 1989 to 92. But I was still volunteering at Wheaton and still working at Rescue 1. Yeah, so I would spend my nights at Rescue 2, get up in the morning, and go work at Rescue 1. I mean, that was all my life.
Gotcha. From one rescue to the other.
One rescue to the other. Yep.
All right. So back when you first started volunteering, and I guess even when you got hired there by Rescue 1, what was the atmosphere like down there? Like what was the culture of the fire service at that time like?
So I was lucky, right? I came into the fire department having fire department background. So the culture to me when I got hired was, my dad, who was a longtime volunteer at Wheaton, past president, all that stuff. They used to have birthday parties, and they would be at my house. They would have bands, they would have crab feasts, and everybody came. It was truly what I remember as a true brotherhood of the department back then. There was some conflict between volunteer and paid, but it wasn't something that I remember being an issue, right? I think 90% of the career guys back then came out of the volunteer organization. So everybody kind of knew everybody. The Wheaton-Kensington rivalry was all fun and games. The Wheaton-Rockville rivalry down in Ocean City for Fireman's Week. We'd have Wheaton on one side, Rockville on the other. They'd be bantering back and forth, but it was always a good time. But it was definitely, it was definitely more of it was definitely a family atmosphere, right? Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew me growing up from the time I was born. Everybody knew who I was, right? And, I would go to their birthday parties. They would come to my birthday parties. My parents would have parties. I would go. It was just a good time. Everybody, the culture was very family oriented, I think.
Yeah, no, that's good. That sounds real good. I mean, it sort of reminds me of some of our other guests we talked about who worked down in Silver Spring, like in the 1st Battalion. Like they would talk about like the friendly rivalries they had with the other stations. And,
right.
There was a competition piece there, but at the end of the day, I mean, it was all love, and everybody was supportive of each other. So yeah, it sounds very much like that.
A little healthy competition kind of make you a little bit makes you better,
Absolutely. And it makes you, doesn't make you, but the people around you, and what their capabilities are. you know what you're getting when you get there. And I think that's a positive.
Yeah.
You know, my dad met a lot of those 1st Battalion guys, the Jimmy Daltons, the Jerry Reeds, the LeMays, you know, all those guys, because he used to go down when 19 had the ambulance. The ambulance was from Wheaton. So my dad would go down there, and they called it the Blitz Crew or something like that. And, you know, that's where my dad met some of these guys. Some of them came from Wheaton and got hired, but he met a lot of those Battalion 1 guys through Station 19. And, you know, those are some hardcore old school OG fire department guys, you know, that he grew up around. Right?
Foundation guys, a lot of foundation
absolutely,
guys,
and that was my immersion into the department, was seeing those guys and hearing the stories. You know, I'm lucky. I'm lucky.
Nice, very nice. All right, so you're volunteering at Rescue 2, then eventually you get hired at Rescue 1. So, I mean, I know for those who may not know, Rescue Company 2, Rescue Company 1 are the 2 rescue companies in the county. They have ambulances, they have medic units or chase cars, and they also have heavy rescue squads.
Yeah.
And they focus primarily on EMS like that. Like the heavy rescue squad will go to
extrication,
fires, right? But they do extrication and all the other stuff that rescue squads do. So when you got hired down there, how was that? Because I mean, the 2 companies are essentially the same. So was it any different, or?
Yeah, it was a pretty easy transition for me. The biggest difference was the outlying departments around Rescue 1 were not volunteer organizations, right? Kensington had volunteers, Hillendale had volunteers, Bethesda, there weren't many volunteers, so it was kind of a prove yourself moment to some of those guys at the 6, 20, 26 firehouses, the Suttons and the you know, I can't apologize, but I can't remember all the names, but you know, you showed up on a rescue scene or you showed up on a fire scene, you had to prove yourself to those guys, and they didn't have a problem telling you if you were doing something wrong, or you know, if they liked what you were doing. You know, they weren't big on compliments, but you could tell when you proved yourself to those guys, it wasn't always, hey, put the squad in service. It was, all right, they can come in and, you know, they got their stuff together. They know what they're doing. You know, I had a pretty good crew down there with Paul Quigley and Danny Godhart, Chief Cooper, myself, Sean Green, who ended up being a battalion chief in DC, Kurt Kersey, you know, a bunch of good guys. But yeah, it was a little different because you know, I felt like I'd proven myself at Wheaton, being good at what we do, right? But then I had to reprove myself all over again to the surrounding companies at Rescue 1, because they didn't know who I was. I was just some young punk jumping off the back of a rescue squad or riding an ambulance somewhere. But yeah, it was definitely a little more tense. But like I said, once you got their approval, they may not have told you, hey man, good job, or you guys are doing right, but you could tell that all right, these guys know what they're doing, and we'll let them come in and do their thing and won't get in their way.
So didn't you dispatch? They had their own 911 dispatch center there. Is that?
They did. For DC. They had a some kind of agreement with Washington DC, where those guys in the neighboring to Montgomery County, they could call Rescue 1 directly for an ambulance, and that happened quite a bit because that's where they fundraise down there and stuff like that. And they had somebody hired full time there just to watch that one phone. So sometimes we had to do it, but mostly it was a guy named Gov. He was an older guy, but that's all he did was answer the phones, and we dispatched directly out of Rescue 1 to go downtown.
Now
I don't know if they do that anymore.
No, they stopped already. They just stopped that. Probably about a couple of years ago they did. I'm not 100% sure, but I know they stopped. I can't tell you what exact time they did though.
Yep.
That's really interesting. I don't know if that says more about the great job you guys were doing down in Rescue 1, or if DC wasn't doing such a good job down there, that part of the district. But.
Yeah, I think at the time, if I remember correctly, obviously it was several years ago, but I think DC Fire was okay with it, right? Because that was less ambulance calls they had to run.
Yeah.
You know, they would go as a first responder sometimes, but it was very rare that we showed up with a DC engine company there, and I think they were good with it. You know?
Yeah.
No, I think that anything any help they can use on the EMS side, I'm sure DC would have took it. I mean, all of us would take it now at this
Absolutely.
rate. Yeah, no, so yeah, you can never have enough cots. You know what I'm
That's right.
saying?
That's right.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So now you're working at Rescue One,
Yep.
and from there, you make a decision to try to get hired by the county. So tell us a little bit about that.
Correct. Yeah. They weren't hiring a lot at the time, but I knew that's where I wanted to go. Right. Nothing against BCC and nothing. It was a great job for what I was doing, but it was time for me to start looking for a career. So I applied through Montgomery County. I did not apply anywhere else. Montgomery County is where I wanted to be. That's all I knew. So I applied through Montgomery County at the time, and I got hired. It was a small class. We were PTI 92-1, and it was June of 92, June 15th of 92. I think we had 18 people in the class all told, and it was an abbreviated class. It was 3 weeks. Rough. I always tell everybody it was the roughest 3 weeks of my life. But because we all had certifications, we were hired. Went through a very abbreviated 3-week academy, and then we were put out in the field. Like I said, at the time, myself, Chief Gary Cooper, and Steve Kisner, who's also since retired, all got hired out of Rescue One in that class. We had some good folks. I mean.
Who was Tim Brown in that class?
Tim Brown,
Yeah.
Dan
Goldstein?
Ogren, myself.
Goldstein was Goldstein in
No,
that? Okay.
yeah, I believe I don't remember. I think he was before me, but I don't remember. It was myself, Tim Brown, Pete Corte,
Yes.
Kevin Waka, who ended up going to FDNY.
Yeah, going to New York.
Yeah. Yep. Chief Cooper, Gary Cooper. God, there's so many. Kevin Blair.
Kevin Blair.
Mark Lewick, who's I don't know where he went. Tony Shartner. Do you remember Tony Shartner?
Tony Shartner, yes, sir.
Shartner. He was a detective in PG County.
Well, he retired pretty high up, and if he's not there still, I thought he just retired.
It's funny because my wife and I were watching an A&E movie or an A&E show the other day, and there was Tony Shartner talking about a case. They did a whole case on one of Tony Shartner's cases.
Yeah, no, he went pretty high up PG County.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good class. I think I know Rick Bowers at 13 is a master. He's left, and I got to be honest. I think that's it. I think he's the only one left out of our recruit class. So
they don't do it. Well, they used to call them pop outs or whatever because they basically had all certifications, and the county was trying to save money.
Absolutely,
you guys were a known quantity. You were in the system. You know how the system worked.
Yep.
They had to just bring you up to stuff as far as national type stuff, as far as academy level. And then they would send you out to the stations.
Yep.
Yeah, because I was right behind you. Yeah.
Yep. What do they call it? Previously trained individuals, I think was our PTI 92-1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I was right behind you. And so where did you go after you finished your 3 weeks?
Yep.
You do an accelerated academy.
Yep.
Which is probably no fun because they squeeze everything into 3 weeks, which is really hard to believe they don't even do that anymore.
No.
No. So where did you go for your rookie?
I went to Station 40 on the A shift with then Sergeant Darwick. And that's where I did my rookie time. Sergeant Darwick, Master Firefighter John Patton, Doug Staley, Craig Blue, Robin McCubbin. Well, she was Shelton at the time. Bob Carrazza. It was a good shift. They took care of me. It was different, right? At the time I was 21, young and stupid. I had 4 or 5 good years at Wheaton before I got hired, so I went in there thinking I knew everything. But they grounded me pretty quickly. So that was good. Working for Sergeant Darwick was sergeant at the time was pretty special. In fact, he's still a pretty lifelong friend of mine. Him and his wife, my wife and Shane and Janet go out to dinner every once in a while. We still keep in touch. So that's good stuff.
Okay, so who was your preceptor?
Our preceptor was Craig Blue. Craig
Craig
retired as
Blue.
captain. Craig Blue. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. That was.
Never heard that name in a while.
I know. No, good people. He was another one that kept me grounded and made sure he pulled me aside every once in a while. Said, "Hey, understand you come from experience, but this is a different world now. You need to shut your mouth, open your eyes, and listen a little bit to what they're teaching you." And
Two
it
ears,
was
one
tough for
mouth.
me, right? Yeah, it was tough for me because I came from a rescue squad. I rode ambulances in a rescue squad, and nothing with hose on it, nothing with water, right? So now I'm riding an engine company. I had to relearn how to be a fireman, and that was good for me. So I really enjoyed that. It wasn't as busy as it is now. We had 5 people staffing around the clock, engine and an ambulance. They had the extrication unit at Station 4. So after my rookie time, every once in a while I'd get detailed to Station 4. I had the opportunity to ride the extrication unit at the time. Joe Conrad, Denise Fox at the time. Denise Peugeot was there. Darlene Faulkner, Joe Valella. Yeah, so some good people over there that again grounded me pretty quickly. Taught me some things.
Only lasted a year, right? You was on probation for like roughly 8 months, 9 months.
Yeah, 8 months. I was there about 2 years. Got my engine driver status, and then after that, the opportunity came for me, and I went directly to ECC as a firefighter. That was at old 120 Maryland Avenue.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went from Station 40 to ECC. Again, an incredible experience, right? It was, it's different than it is now. We had 3 people working the floor, 1 dispatcher, 1 call taker, and 1 person whose job was to notify the hospitals that we were coming in and do all the ancillary stuff, and then a supervisor. And it's a different world, right?
I remember you had to for EMS units, you had to go in and you need your clearing time. So you would call clear and they give you the numbers and you put the numbers in and
that was the old 11-3-004-11, right? Working out.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. That's a blast from the past.
I'm telling you that experience initially was it was exceptional. I worked with some great folks up there. I mean, Bucky Mann, Buzz Brand, Pete Friedman, Gary Cooper was there as well. There's a lot of people, of course, Mike Markopoulos, and just some guys that, they were diehard Montgomery County firemen guys, right? They knew everything about the county. They knew everything about the people. They knew everything about the apparatus, the area. It was Eddie Wiles. The guy was Rain Man. He was pretty special to work with. But I truly believe that opportunity at ECC made me a better fireman, and certainly made me a better officer.
Right.
Through that experience. If you look at some of the people when we tested for promotional opportunities, the guys that did well had ECC experience. The Sam Villanis, the Ivan Brownings, the DJ Mandevilles, the people that went through where listening to a radio and multitasking and peripheral awareness and all that was second nature. And then coming out into the field and being a buckethead or being an officer, and why they say certain things on the radio, why, what resources that ECC can do and can't do quickly. It definitely gave me another look. And as I think about it, I grew up with a scanner in my house from the day I was born. My dad had 2 scanners in the house with speakers everywhere, so he could hear everything that's going on. He had the Wheaton pager next to his bed. So I listened to the radio from the time I can remember listening to anything. I was listening to a Montgomery County radio. So it was an easy transition for me.
Yeah, no, that's ECC is learning the job from that 10,000 foot view.
Yep.
And that's just different because, obviously anybody that's listening to this that rides the fire truck or was an officer, you're focused on your gig. You're checking out what everybody else is doing and what they're supposed to do, but you're really focused on the task at hand, which is your job in that box alarm, in that assignment. You know what I'm saying? But at ECC, you really focus on everyone else's job. I mean, you're really looking at it it's kind of coming together right in front of you, which is pretty cool. And it's not everybody can do that. It's a lot of multitasking. It's just as much now. It hasn't really. It's changed. The technology's changed a lot.
Yep.
But they still, you got to be able to multitask to do that job. And if you're not a really good multitasker, which a lot of us are good multitaskers, but it's at a different. I think the intensity level up there is next level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head, Tony, when you said, you know, when we're riding a fire truck, we're going on a box alarm. That's our mission, right? That's the one thing we're focused on. When you're in that box at ECC and you're on the radio, you have 27 other events going on at the same time.
Right.
Maybe some in the same area. You have to focus on all of them. You know, all of them are a priority, not just the one. And it's, I tell you, of all the assignments I had in 30 years, that was probably the most stressful. By far. That was the you don't sleep, you gain weight, it was definitely the most stressful assignment I ever had.
So what was the working conditions? Because I know that's the way you get up there now, or people want the job because the schedule has changed, but you're one of the original heads from way back. That schedule was not that good.
No, we worked 2, 2, and 4.
Yeah.
2 12-hour days, 2 12-hour nights, 4 days off.
And there was no extra pay either.
Nope. There was no extra pay. It was, you know, when you work from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., there was no sleep period. So your transition from your 2 days, so I'd work Monday, Tuesday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday, I'd get off at 7 p.m., go home. You'd have to try to stay awake so you could sleep during the day because you had to go in at 7 p.m. on Wednesday night and stay awake until 7 a.m. Thursday morning. And that was, you know, those 2 days. And then if you picked up an overtime shift or whatever in those 4 days, your whole, you know, it was interesting. And you took cat naps and, you know, there were times where I fell asleep in a chair, no doubt, taught me how to sleep anywhere. But there was no place to lay down. It was, you were up. And, you know, about 2, 3 in the morning, it slows down quite a bit. It was lots of coffee and Diet Coke and, you know, what's to eat? It's at 2 in the morning, right? You go to 7-Eleven, get a big bite, and that was your dinner. Because no kitchen. I mean, we didn't have a kitchen, didn't have a shower. It was a male and a female bathroom. And, you know, the police were two stories down on the first floor. We were on the 3rd floor, and it is what it is. But, you know, we made it work. It was, you know, it's what you got used to. But it was definitely different. And then later on in my career, I went back to ECC when I got promoted to master, and that was when we transitioned to the new place at Quince Orchard. Shortly after that, the union and everybody else went to the 2448 with a Kelly.
Okay.
Because I don't know what they're doing multiple Kellys now or whatever.
Triple Kellys.
Hybrid of triple Kellys, but we were just strictly 2448 with a Kelly at that time, which made sense, right? That was part of our argument is being at ECC, being on the same schedule as the people in the field made working together easier, right? Because when I was doing 2, 2, and 4, on Monday it was A shift, Tuesday was B shift, Wednesday was C shift, and we were working with different battalion chiefs, different captains, different docs, but it was the same group at ECC. So we had to change didn't have to, but we changed some of our rhythms depending on who was working in the field that day, right? Where on 2448, you're working the same shifts. You know the doc, you know the people, you know what they expect, you know they know what to expect from you for the most part. And I think I enjoyed the 2448 schedule obviously much better, but I think it worked better for field and communications to working together. I think it definitely had its bonuses.
So you're in communications and you get the job down, you're learning it. You're always learning it. So you're not, you're always learning until the day you leave this place, right?
Yep.
What made you decide to leave ECC and try to promote? You had to make a decision. Okay, I want to promote because this is different. ECC is different than the firehouse. So you have to come back to what you knew. But you left again. You said you left after your rookie year or a few years at Station 4 and 40 Sandy Springs. So you're coming out to the field. Now you're promoting out. what was that like, and what made you want to do something like that?
So the first time I left ECC, I ended up going to Station 6 on the B shift with Captain Williamson. An opportunity came open. Dave Swanson was no, that was not Dave Swanson. There was a firefighter opening at Station 6 when I went there the first time. And Captain Williams, or I think he was captain at the time, Captain Williamson and I talked, and I'd known him for a while, and he said, he had a firefighter spot open, so I applied for it. Of course, back then it was the same thing. I think I applied for it, got accepted, and it was 8 to 12 months before I actually got out of ECC back to the field because I had to train somebody to come in and take my place.
Right.
But I went there as a firefighter. I was already a wagon driver. I got my wagon driver status and my squad driver status actually while I was at Station 4 because I was already squad driver at Wheaton. So I kind of did a little bit of a hybrid squad checkout, but got my engine driver status. And when I left there, I said, I haven't driven a wagon in 3 years. So I actually went back and retook the pumps class before I went back out to the field. Went down there. Of course, Captain Williamson was a pumps instructor, so it was a pretty easy transition for me. But I went down there as a firefighter with, I can't remember. Sean Bryant was a firefighter there. Tom Cummins was a firefighter there. One of my favorite people in the whole world, Kenny Bristol.
God rest
his soul. But one of my favorite people, he was a firefighter there. Paul Haney. Yeah, Paul Haney. Just some good people, and they welcomed me in. They understood where I was coming from, got me right back into the rhythm of being on a fire truck, and that was good. I really, really enjoyed that time. Excuse me, Captain Williamson was one of my all-time favorites. That guy, man, as an officer, he just commanded
respect, man.
But he didn't do it in a way that was
no
hardcore, right? You wanted to do good because you wanted him to be proud of you. That was a cool thing to have as an officer, man. He just, very laid back, but God, super intelligent. He was a hell of a fireman, and you just wanted to do the right things for him. And he didn't pound his fist. He wasn't a hardcore in your face kind of guy, but man, it was the whole joke was, what would Captain Williamson do, right? You wanted to do good for him.
He was always so calm, man. He was my captain. He was my captain at 13. He was just always chill. He would always lower the temperature. You know what I'm saying?
That is a great analogy. That is a fantastic analogy because that was him in a nutshell, man. It was just, there was no, there was no blow up out of him. It was the same level all the time. Now you knew when you messed up, and you knew when you didn't, when you did something he didn't like, but that was few and far between because anybody that worked for him, at least at Station 6 when I worked with him, you just wanted to do good for him, and that was a cool experience.
So did you promote out of 6? You went there as a
I did not. So I was at 6 when Germantown expanded their personnel. So they went, at the time they had an engine, truck, and squad, and an ambulance and a chase car at 29. And they were short staffed for a while. They were, I think, they cross staffed the engine and the truck, the squad and the truck, and the engine was always staffed. And then the ambulance, well, at some point they decided to go full staffing at 29. And I transferred out because I wanted to go back to a rescue squad. So I left Station 6 as a firefighter, went to Station 29 as a firefighter. And at the time, at night, they were still dropping some staffing, so we got detailed out night sides. But for the most part, I was at 29 all the time. And that's where I got my truck status. So by the time I was at 29, I was a driver on the engine, truck, and squad. And that was prior to me being a master. So that was, within 7 or 8 years of my career starting. And 2001, so I was at 29. So yeah, within 10 years of my beginning my career, I was an engine, truck, squad driver because I went to 29. I worked for Captain Kornblatt, Lieutenant Bridget. Yeah, Lieutenant Bridget, and then I met some lifelong friends there. Man, that was a great great assignment for a firefighter. It was myself, Kevin Blair, Mark Nelson, Alex Aquino. Mike Berry.
Yeah, Mike Berry, my man.
Yeah, Dan Maxwell was there. Pat Spivak was there. Man, that was a fun time to be a fireman because you got it all, right? In fact, for the most part, of that time there, that engine company, that was to the detail piece, right? If you got detailed into 29, you were riding the engine company because we wanted to be on the specials.
Right.
Man, that was a good time. That was like I said, I met some lifelong friends there. Mike Berry, that was my first assignment with him, and we've remained lifelong friends since then. Our kids grew up together at that firehouse. Dave Galt, Doug Finlayson were my masters. Dave, and I still, my wife and I go out to dinner with Dave and Dana Galt all the time. They're living down in Ocean City now, but when we go down there, we see them. Yeah, that was a good time to be a fireman, and
So
we were pretty busy.
So when did you get promoted to lieutenant after that? When did you?
So I was still at 29. I was still there as a master.
Okay.
I took the test. I only took the master test, and got promoted. A spot came open at ECC again, so I left 29, took the spot because they jumped the list to get to me. So I wasn't going to turn it down because I was already ECC qualified. So I took the spot at ECC under Leslie Boswell Cook. She got some positions approved for ECC to be masters because before it was just firefighters. So I left 29, went to ECC as a master, spent a couple years there. That's when we transitioned to the new center. So I guess that was 02, 03 maybe. I don't remember the actual dates. But I did a couple years there, both at 120, and then we moved over to 1300 Quince Orchard. And then from that point, I went back to Station 6 as a master when I left ECC. Dave Swanson was the master at 6 on the B shift. He retired. Captain Williamson reached out to me and said, "Love to have you come back." Applied for it, and again, it was another year before I got out of ECC to go to Station 6. But then I went there as the master on Station 6, at Station 6 on B shift for Captain Williamson.
Okay.
Been a good bit of time there. Again, fantastic. Just working for Captain Williamson, especially as a master. All right, I'll see you later. Driving him every day was, it just makes you better. It really does. I was able to get my TDA status then as well because they had a TDA at 6, and then we got to the tower.
Killer truck, yeah.
Yep. And then I bumped over to the ladder truck. What a tough career, right? And truck driver, Station 6.
Yeah. Hard stuff. Yeah.
It was good stuff. That was a great shift too. It was myself, Pat Mann, Dana Evans. We had a kind of a revolving door of masters through there because they'd come in and then they get promoted, or they come in and they leave. Like Mark Torrey was there for a while. Ivan Browning was there for, I don't know, maybe a month before he got promoted. But it was a good time. You were there too, Tony, weren't you?
Yeah, for a second. I was there for a second as a master.
Yeah.
Like a blink of an eye, and then I became a lieutenant.
So it was a revolving door of the other masters, but that's where I wanted to be, right? 6, driving the ladder truck, tough gig. But then, so I was there, great time, learned a lot. Again, worked for Captain Williamson, just phenomenal leader.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, keep going.
Yeah, but from that point, that's when Chief Mark Davis went to FEI. And while he was there, he came up with this program. They called it the technician program, where they were going to bring master firefighters in, learn them the job, and then hope once they got promoted, they would move on, and it would be an easy transition to get in there.
Okay. So now you're transitioned into FEI, and so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was so back in the day. I'll go back a little bit. Station 40, working for Sergeant Darwick. One of the things he did when I first got there had me fill out this form. What are your career goals? What do you expect to get from me? Blah, 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 blah. And on that form, I put on there, I wanted to be a canine handler at FEI. That was my career goal when I got hired. Um, you know, so move forward to being a master at Station 6. Chief Davis came up with the idea of the technician program. So I was ecstatic, man. That's all I've been working for. I applied for the position. Thankfully, I got hired, or I got approved for that position. So I was splitting time between FEI and Station 6 as the master. But again, I was there as a master firefighter role. It was myself, Cliff Billingsley, Jamie White, and Donnie Boyd were the four that were chosen because they were working the 2, 2, and 4 shifts as well. So they had 4 shifts. So those were the four guys that got chosen to be in this technician program. And man, it was it was everything I wanted and more. It was they sent me through the fire investigator training. I met some unbelievable people there that man, those guys work their butts off. They are just a phenomenal group of people, man. Their dedication to what they're doing is unreal. A lot of people don't see it because they're in their little hole up away, and they only show up, when the fire's out, and they're very picky about, hey, don't do this, no, hold up on overhaul, blah blah blah, and they're like, man, I just want to go home, and but man, what they're doing is just it's unbelievable work. Even the guys that got there now, there's going to be A&E documentaries on some of the stuff these guys are doing. It's just unbelievable what they're doing. So I was lucky. They sent me through my fire investigator training. I was driving the bomb truck. I got to do things there that most people in their career, 50-year career, will never get to do. I got to do SWAT call outs. Now, of course, I'm in the back, not doing the work part of it, but driving the bomb truck to the scene, setting up the robot, going out on these fire investigations and watching these guys work, the Mike Reddings, the Brian Andersons, the Flounders, and Sharon Jarrell and Mario Rita, and those guys. People may not know who they are, but man, they were dedicated and they did good work. They got a lot of arsonists off the street. They did a lot of trend tracking about things that were causing fires and why we're having fires in this one area instead of this area. And was it a refrigerator from Lowe's that was having a recall? And it was just unbelievable. It was a truly awesome experience to get to learn from some of those guys. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to continue that career there, but I did. It set me up for a part-time gig. When I left FEI, I had all my certifications. I started working for Rod Rutten, who started his own business, and doing fire investigations for insurance companies. And there was good pay in that, and there was some good experience in that. So it set me up for about 10 or 12 years of good part-time work.
It was back in the day when you needed a part-time job. You remember?
Correct.
Little sidebar, Miles. Little sidebar here. I used to work part-time at EU Services.
Oh, that's right, EU Services.
EU Services. Mark was the dispatcher for a bunch of us. It was me, Tim Brown, Mike Berry. Who else was there? There was the
Mark Davis.
We and he would run
Billy Everett.
And we used to Pebble used to work there too, right?
Yep.
Pebble.
Yep.
And we used to drive around in vans, and we had CDLs, and to say it mildly, we didn't particulate in other forms that some of the drivers did, so we were easy to test in ways that were advantageous to the company.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yep, those were good times. Yeah, the overtime wasn't as prevalent as it is today. So, working a part-time job that was, advantageous and financially good was definitely a bonus. And, to have that opportunity to be able to work for, insurance companies because of the certification that the county basically paid me to get, was a bonus. And look, I enjoyed it, man. It was that was cool work, putting together a puzzle. And again, I think those things made me, and I hope I don't sound too confident or whatever, but I think those experiences made me a better unit officer, right? You look at things a little differently, not even just during fire attack or just running calls. You just see things in a different way that a lot of people don't get the opportunity because that's just not the training they got, right? No fault of their own, but I think it made me a little better at what I did. because it gave me a different perspective. So,
Oh, absolutely. And I really appreciate you mentioning all the work that FEI does, because I think for us out in the field, I mean, we really have almost zero interaction with the FEI folks, except when they have to come out to the scene after a fire and they're doing their investigation. And even then, your average run the mill like fire 2 or fire 3 is probably not talking to them.
yep.
But they're doing a lot of work, and they've put in a lot of work to get to where they are, to be able to look at, this mess of a burned up house or building or whatever it is, and to be able to figure out, hey, what caused this, or what was the burn pattern of this fire, or what evidence was there to suggest that, hey, maybe this was arson, or maybe this was an electrical short here. So yeah, that's really cool that you got to see it from that perspective.
Yep. And I tell you, and this is something for the firefighters that are running these calls. I know a good portion of the guys up there now, and even when I was a buckethead riding backwards on a fire truck, they were out there doing the investigation. Walk up to them. Hey man, you mind if I shadow you? You mind if I ask you a couple questions about what you're doing? They're, for the most part, I think they would be all over it. And it gives the firefighter an opportunity, even the officers. Hey man, you mind if I shadow you for a minute? Let me see what you're looking at. Why are you looking here? Well, we came in this entrance and the fire was blowing out that window. Why are you looking over here? And I think those guys will jump all over it, and they'll give you a different perspective, a little more scientific, right? A little more nerdy reason why things are happening. But I can't imagine any of them would say, no, get out of my way. I think they'd be more than happy to share their information, and I think it's good for everybody to learn those things. What
Right.
do you get in the academy? 10 hours of do I need a fire investigator? Shadow them. Ask them what they're looking at. Help them, right? Because they're in there digging by themselves. Hey man, can I grab a shovel? What do you want me to do? Can I help you out a little bit?
Yeah.
And I think as a firefighter and even an officer, it'll definitely increase your abilities down the road. You'll look at things in a different way. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to take that with me the next time that
Absolutely.
they're out there doing their thing. So
Yep.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, they do phenomenal work. I'm really impressed with them.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right, so where was I? So moved to 29, went back to ECC, went back to 6, doing the FEI. Like I said, I was splitting time between FEI and Station 6, and took the promotional test for lieutenant, hoping to get a full-time position at FEI. Ended up getting promoted. Was floating in the 2nd Battalion for a little while. Unfortunately for me, I did not get chosen to go to FEI full-time. But that just made me want to be a captain at that point, right? Because the only reason I wanted to get promoted to lieutenant at the time was to go to FEI, because I was a truck driver, Station 6. I mean, tough gig, right? I didn't want to promote out of that. So then I made lieutenant, floating in the 2nd Battalion on B shift, working for Chief Jones, Steve Jones. And spent a lot of time at 6 on the B shift as a float guy. And then Captain Conway got hurt down at Station 11. So they put me there as a temporary fill-in. I was there for probably, I'd say, a year and a half, working with Master Firefighter Scott Herring. And the cool part about that, not only working for Chief Jones, obviously being in the 2nd Battalion down at 11, I knew the area from spending a good majority of my time at Station 6. So that was an easy transition for me. But Captain Conway used to come in all the time. And to be able to sit down and have a conversation with that guy at the kitchen table, he's just a different breed, man. If you never had the opportunity to work for the guy, there's all these stories and memes about him and the way he talked sometimes. But man, that guy was smart. Man,
Yeah.
Having the opportunity to sit with him one-on-one at a kitchen table and listen to his thought process on some things. Now, some things were way out of left field, that's for sure. But for the most part, man, that dude was solid. And he, the joke between Scott and I was always, you're going to make a good captain one day, Mark. That's what he would always tell me. And that's, that was good to hear from that guy. And, he, that was a smart dude. So I was very lucky at that point.
Yes, I actually did my rookie time with him.
With him?
Yes. So I can attest to everything that you just said. 100% correct.
Yeah. Wow.
He is probably one of the most unorthodox people that I've ever met, especially in the fire department context. But I mean, you're absolutely right. One of the smartest men you ever talk to.
Yeah.
Sharp.
Yes.
Yeah. But unorthodox is an understatement. But yeah, just like I said, having the opportunity to talk one-on-one with him about tactics and life and the fire department, it just, I don't know how many people got to do that with him as a captain, but I was definitely glad I did.
Awesome.
So my time there was short. A spot opened up at Station 31 on the B shift. I believe it was Tom Gartner who was a lieutenant there, and then I don't remember if he got promoted or if he just left to go to 8. But they opened up a lieutenant spot at Station 31. I applied for it. Got that again. I got back together with Mike Berry, who was the engine driver there. Worked for Captain Collins. Had some phenomenal guys on that shift. Ran a lot of fires there. Got a lot of good experience. Engine and truck house again. Worked for Chief Malaloo. Chief Hagberg was there for a little while. He was a temporary. And Chief Holtzman, I believe, was there. But just some good firemen on that shift. Donnie Smith and I think
Smith.
Yeah, Damian Langston, Mark Hopkins, and Mike Berry were the two masters. Rich Grant, Tony Scott, Rich Brown, Brian Roydis came there. We just had some good young firemen that wanted to do stuff. Right? That was a good transition for me because going in there as a lieutenant with a pretty seasoned captain. Right? Captain Collins has been around for a long time. Those guys, the Mike Berrys and the Rich Grants and the Roydis and those guys, they wanted to do something every day, which made me better at what I did. And I needed that at that point, I think, because I was kind of at a lull in my career, right? I was very disappointed I didn't get that FEI spot. I'd worked hard for that, and there's reasons that I won't get into, but I didn't get that spot, so I was very disappointed. And I was kind of at a lull in my career, but going there kind of reinvigorated myself. Because like I said, I was back with Mike Berry, who he was driving me on a wagon every day, man. That was just, we had a blast, right? The young guys just pushed me to get better at what I did, to start to be an officer again. And I really, really enjoyed that time in my career. That was fun. Like I said, we ran a bunch of fires. A lot of good guys came in and out. Chris Whitehead was there. He promoted out. Melissa Staley was there. She ended up retiring. But just a lot of good people. And, I think that was the first time in my career where I saw really good people focusing on really good EMS, right? We had a medic unit at the station, so we were always running with them as manpower. And you guys know as well as I do, right? 90% of what we do is EMS, but nobody wants to do it.
Right.
And that really, it was good to see. There were some really good medics on that shift. I mean, Mike Berry was a phenomenal medic. He's Mike Berry. I love that guy to death. If you were sick, he's the guy I wanted to be. He's the guy I wanted working on me. I mean, he was a phenomenal medic. Chris Whitehead was a great medic. Melissa Staley was a fantastic medic. We had some really good paramedics on that crew that the EMS, the other EMTs like us, we enjoyed going on calls with them because it wasn't a nightmare. It was very well run. They enjoyed what they were doing. They did a good job, and it was a pleasure to finally get back to a place where, it wasn't all about running the fires. Of course, that's what we wanted to do, right? We ran a bunch of fire there, but the EMS there was strong as well. And that kind of got me back into the game. So I really, really enjoyed that time in my career.
Yeah, they respected you a lot. They respected you a lot because I said they respected you a lot. I came there as a lieutenant because they after you got promoted, and same shift, and we often had discussions. Yeah, you set me up pretty good there when I got there.
Yep, and it was easy, right? You had the right people behind you that wanted to do the job. It was easy. So I got back on the USAR team. Then I was communications. I wasn't stacking boxes or dumping in dirt. But I did the communications with John Freeberger, Mark Nelson, those guys, and that got me back into the USAR team, which was pretty cool. Again, doing stuff that a lot of people don't get to do. So it was definitely different. And then I was there for a couple years, and that's took the captain's exam, got promoted to captain. Unfortunately, I had to leave 31, and that's the hard part about promotions, right? You get settled in, you're in a good spot, and then all of a sudden they're like, all right, here you go, next. And I made captain. And again, I was very lucky in my career. Every time I got promoted, I got a spot. Now, when it was a lieutenant, I got placed at 11 as a temporary, but it was still a spot. I wasn't living out of my car. I don't know how these guys do it, and I know that's a terrible frustration for these guys getting promoted. Like, I'm at a home. Why do I want to live out of my car for the next 3 years? Mm-hmm. So I was very lucky in my promotional movements so I got promoted to captain, and I got sent to station 15. It was myself, Brett Livingston got promoted. He went to 15. I think I was on A shift there. And then O'Neill Johnson was also there as the other captain at 15. So pretty good group of captains, but it was 15 prior to what people know 15 as now. It was a little different. But I gotta tell you, I didn't have a single issue when I went there. I knew most of those guys from my volunteer time, and I went in there with an open mind. I knew Chief Baker, I knew Chief Ryan, I knew all those guys. I went in there with an open mind. I had a really good shift there as well. I had Paul Vines, I had Chantel Brown, Ryan Linville at the time was there, but those guys. So I went in behind behind Mike Craig Clements. So Craig had those guys. Man, I didn't know Burtonsville for anything. I knew Route 29 and Route 198. That's all I knew. And those guys knew every street, every hydrant, every building, everything about that area. I didn't have to worry about anything. I just had to learn it, right? Chantel could tell you where every hydrant was in every complex. She was fantastic. She was the medic there as well. And I was lucky. All my career, I was lucky at my assignments. I wasn't there very long. Captain Barber was at Station 6 on the B shift at the time, and he wanted to come back to 15. I always wanted to go back to Station 6. I think I got promoted in August, so I was there for maybe August to December. And then Mike reached out to me and said, hey, man, I want to come back to 15. You have any, desire to come back to 6? And I was like, yeah, kind of. So we did a swap. I went back to Station 6 in December or January of 15 or 16, maybe. And that's where I spent the rest of my career. Again, lucky. I went back to a shift that I knew, a place that I knew, a place that I was comfortable. Most of the guys that were still there on B shift I had worked with before. Lieutenant Falcon, Julio was my lieutenant when I was there. I mean, I was Julio's master, and I called him directly and I said, hey, man, I'm interested in coming back there as a captain. Do you have an issue with that? Because he was my lieutenant when I was a master. I didn't want to come back there as a captain and make him feel uncomfortable or whatever. I really wanted to go back, and I think if he had told me no, I don't think it'd be good. I don't think I would have done the trade. But he was all about it. He was 100% on board. So Mike and I did the switch, and as they say, the rest is history. I spent the next 10, 12 years at Station 6 until I retired. The lieutenant position at Station 6 was another revolving door, which I get. Anytime someone called me, I said, look, love to have you here. I said, but, a new lieutenant at Station 6 isn't you're not going to get the experience you're going to get somewhere else, right? I can learn you what I can learn you, but I know you're coming here on a temporary basis, and I'm okay with that. That's kind of what happened. But I had some good folks run through there. I mean, Lieutenant Ransom, Lieutenant Briscoe, Lieutenant Grinder at the time, Lieutenant Falcon, all those guys moved up captain or chief from there, which I knew they were going to do. But it was good times, and again, I had some great firemen behind me. Not as busy as some of the other stations, obviously. The smells and bells or what they talk about, but I think we did a good job, and I really enjoyed that time.
Excellent.
Good. That's good.
It's good that you got to come back to like what was pretty much your home after a lot of years.
I don't think many people anymore had the opportunity. So I held every position at Station 6 on the B shift from firefighter to captain. Now I had to leave and come back, but I just don't think that's, and that was, again, lucky for me. I had the opportunity to do that, but that's a pretty cool feeling for me to know that I, went from firefighter to captain, same station, same shift, different time. Obviously, like I said, I had to leave and come back because the way they don't allow that. But I don't know how many people have had that opportunity. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that is really cool. So now you're captain there. You're working there for a few years, and eventually the time has come to think about hanging it up. So what tell us about that? Like what made you start thinking about, okay, it's time to start thinking about retirement?
Yeah, I don't really know what the shining moment was when I started thinking about it. I knew I was getting there, right? It just I couldn't keep up sometimes, and I hate to admit that, but when you got a bunch of young guys behind you, and I kind of started feeling at some point that I was hindering more than I was helping. I would still go to a fire, don't get me wrong, but I transitioned from riding the engine company almost exclusively to jumping over to the ladder truck because I wanted to sleep that night, and I found myself not wanting to run the EMS calls and blah 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 blah, and I just felt it was time that maybe I was hindering more than helping. It hurt more, I didn't want to be at the point in my career where I was one of those captains where the rest of the ship was like, all right, well, just leave the captain in the office. We'll go do shit. And if we run a call, I didn't want to be that guy. And I kind of felt that I was getting there. And that's a tough thing to admit, right? I'm still young. I'm not in the greatest shape, but I'm not a huge shape, right? I'm not totally out of shape, but it was, and the other thing too, and I talked to my wife extensively about this, is I'd done everything I wanted to do. I wasn't going to get promoted to battalion chief because I didn't want to start chasing those raises. If I knew if I got battalion chief, I'd have to wait another 3 years for that money to be included in my retirement. And I knew the time was ready to go. Now, do I think making battalion chief may have extended my career a little bit? Maybe, but I didn't want to keep chasing the money. I wanted to enjoy the retired life. I didn't want to miss anything else. And I'd done everything I wanted to do. I'd done the USAR, I'd done the ECC, I'd done the FEI, I've run the fires, I've run the wrecks, I've run the calls that I wanted to run. It was just going through the motions, and I didn't like that feeling. So I tell the story all the time. I had all my drop paperwork filled out, and it was computer generated, right? So all I had to do was send the email, and it's on my desktop, and I'd go into work and I'd be like, today's the day. And I'm like, no, I don't know if I'm ready. Today's the day. No, I don't know if I'm ready. And I'm on the phone with my wife one day, and she goes, damn it, Mark, just push the button and hit send. I was like, all right, hit send. And I was waiting for this huge rush of, oh my God. And it just said email delivered. And that was it. And it was like, okay, I'm good with it, right? It wasn't this huge rush of emotion like I thought it would be. It wasn't anything other than sending an email. And then I was like, okay, I'm in the drop. And then that's when I knew I did the right thing. I started getting into some things. My son was playing high school golf, so I was taking a lot of leave to go watch him play. I was playing a lot of golf. I was taking leave so I could go play. I was kind of like an absent captain for the last, 18 months of the drop. So my actual drop date was October. and I decided there was no way I was going to make it through the summer. It just wasn't going to happen. I was burning through my leave. I didn't want to be there. I would take leave dayside, come in nightside for a sleepover. And so I moved my date. I went to the financial guy and said, hey, if I go in July instead of October, how much money am I going to cost? Is it going to be this horrible amount of money? I was scared to death that he was going to tell me, no, you can't go. You can't do it. I walked in there and I said, this is what I want to do. He goes, on the computer, he goes, yeah, you're good. So I was okay. So I moved my drop date to July 1st instead of October 31st. And so I went a little bit early, but it was time to go. Again, going back to when I made that decision, I think it was just, you just kind of knew. There was no beacon, no event, nothing that said, okay, now it's time. It was just a culmination of everything. It was like, okay, what am I doing? I'm kind of stagnant. I just want to go enjoy the rest of my, and then you hear all the horror stories about, unfortunately, these guys that retire and they get sick, they get hurt, they pass away, they don't enjoy their retirement, what we worked 30 some years for. I didn't want to do that. It was, so that's how I did it. Yeah.
Anticlimactic is what I would describe it.
Exactly. I was, truthfully, Tony, I was expecting this huge rush of emotion, like, oh my God, what did I just do? And it didn't happen. So I was like, okay, I did the right thing.
Yeah.
And I also had to look at, if we're being honest, like I said before, about the shift. Was I detrimental to the shift by staying? Physically, no, I don't think so. I mean, I still went to fires, we still did our job, but I don't know if I was giving some of those younger guys everything they needed. And I didn't want to feel like I was not helping them progress in their careers because I was at the end of mine. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I will say kudos to you for just having the humility to recognize that. Because I mean, that's a hard, I would imagine that's a very hard decision to make, especially when you, like you said, like you're not out of shape. You know, you can still do the job.
Right.
You can still do everything you're asked to do, but you're not giving the best for the up and coming generation. So man, that kudos to you for that.
And that's tough for me to admit sometimes but and I don't know if I have admitted that to others before. But yeah, I mean that weighed on me because I had some really good guys, right? They had a lot of faith in me. They respected me. Shit. Two of the guys on my shift, the two younger guys, they were my rookies, and then they came back to work for me again. Right? They left and came back, and I just didn't feel like I was giving them 100%, and it was selfish on my part because, like, all right, I can go. I'm 51 years old. I can walk out of here and be happy. But there was a little bit of that. What's best for the shift that that I built, right? What's best for them moving forward, and I think I made the right decision. I don't regret it at all.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because I think a lot of people contemplate whether they should do that or when to do that or when to pull the trigger. And one of our previous podcasts, Tippett, says you got to make room for the next generation. You got to, part of leadership is knowing when to go to.
100%.
So for a fact, that's what you did, brother. Yeah, that's part of good leadership, saying, you know what? I had a good time. Now time to make space for some other people.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And look, you know as well as I do, I learned very quickly that barring just my shift, right? I think my shift was awesome. But to most other people, we're just a number, brother. We're just a number. Hey man, when are you going? So I know if I'm going to get promoted next or not. What number are you? When are you leaving? What's your date? Okay, I'm number 32. So if this guy leaves and that guy leaves, then you're my spot. And I didn't look at that as much as I did as my own guys. But for the most part, we're just a number towards the end. People already got you figured out, Tony. When your drop date is, people know who's getting promoted next.
They
already know, right?
Yeah, they do. You got to watch yourself. I don't want lieutenants around me when I'm working. Just
I've already told Tony that as soon as he retires, like the captain's test is right around then, and I'm gonna take it, and I'm gonna come and take his spot.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
The thing with that is that you're right. You owe the folks around you the responsibility of saying, okay, it's time for me to go. I mean, I believe that I see the same person in the mirror, but the truth is time comes for everyone, right?
Yep.
And you see it more as you get higher up and older in the service, especially a job that's physical as ours, at times very physical, and at times not so physical. And that transition, it comes like quick, you know.
Yep.
So you see that and you say to yourself, am I doing the right thing? And the right thing is when you feel it. And sometimes it's got to be before you feel it, but for everybody, it's different.
Right.
There's the mental aspect, and you know, Mark, there's a mental part of it of uncoupling yourself from this job, which is still very difficult to
Yeah.
do. And being like yourself, being involved in the union and all the things that you did, you know, it's not a switch that you can turn on and off. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
You
And
know,
piggybacking on what you were just saying, and the more I think about it now, the shifts that I work for, not just the ones at the end of my career, right? All the shifts that I had, they did a lot for me, right? They made me better. They took care of me. They made us look good when we went on calls. They worked their butts off, and I think I owed it to them to let that continue, maybe with somebody else, right?
right.
You know, because they looked out for me everywhere I went, and I think in the end I owed it to them to do the same thing. You know, I was the one thing that worried me when I retired was who they were going to get, right? That was my fear, man. Are they going to get somebody that's going to come in here and just totally demolish everything that not I personally, but that we've built as a group? Man, what is going to happen? And you know, Greg Ransom ended up going to Station 6 on the B shift. He was my lieutenant, and he left and went to 23, got promoted to captain. I was ecstatic when I found out he got it because he was there when we built that, right? So he had my same, you know, some of our tactics and some of our thought process may be different, but he had the same family cohesiveness outlook on the shift that I had, and I was very comfortable walking away knowing that he was the one that was going to continue with what we had, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, Ransom's a good guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so you're in the drop.
Yep.
Time is winding down, and now it's time to come to the end. Do you remember your last shift?
Vividly. I worked dayside because they put me on leave at 5 o'clock because after midnight I was no longer employed. And I could tell you at midnight, my email was shut off. My telestaff access was shut off. It was 12:01, man. I was done. But yeah, no, the last shift was good. So let me transition a couple shifts before that. So I have a stepson on the job. My stepson worked at Station 2 at the time on B shift. And we had not had the opportunity to work together. We'd been on some calls together, but not had the opportunity to work together. So I reached out to Chief Blinkhorn, who was my battalion chief at the time, and Captain Howard at Station 2. And we managed to do a swap one day where he got to come to Station 6 and ride the engine company with me for 24 hours. That was probably one of my coolest memories. That was pretty awesome. I know some of the other guys that have family on the job got the opportunity to do that, but man, that was just, we didn't run anything, but it was just a cool experience. And the fact that they allowed that to happen for me, I was deeply in debt to them for that, because that was a pretty cool experience. So yeah, so transition to the last day. The guys on the shift asked me, you know, do you want to have anything? I said, absolutely, man. I want this to be a blowout. Right? I want people coming in, shaking my hand, telling me, you know, bullshit me, telling me what a great guy I am. I want all that. So they did. My last day, man, just so many people came through there. The county allowed units to get detailed, you know, or come down on the air. Guys from 34 had come down, a couple guys that I'd worked with in the past, Briscoe and Rich Grant, Phil Williamson. They came down. A bunch of retired guys showed up that really just blew my mind. Kevin Bridget, Bill Kang, Pat McTighe. A bunch of guys just came down and sat in the engine room and BS for a while and told stories. And, it was awesome. I truly enjoyed that. And I'll shoot you some pictures, Russ, because that was a pretty cool day. Let me go back. Also, the same shift that my stepson rode with me, got off in the morning, and this is one of my coolest accomplishments. This is what I really feel proud about. My time at Station 6, I think I had 12 years there. I had 9 rookies come through. All of them are still on the job. 3 of them become medics. 2 of them came back. 2 of my rookies worked for me. He did the probation time, left and went to another station, called me up, said, man, Captain, I really want to come back to work for you. All right, we had a spot open. They came back. So that was Tyler Buckley and Chris Galt. They left, ended up coming back and worked for me, which was pretty, what a cool feeling, right? You did good for a rookie. They want to come back and work for you. That was pretty cool. And then Steve Magliero, Ariel Dalrymple, Will Ritchie, they were my rookies. They became paramedics, and they're all exceptional at what they do. But anyway, so I get up that morning after my stepson had ridden with me. We're getting ready to go home. I walk outside, and Ariel had contacted all my previous rookies, and they all came down. I got chills thinking about it. They all came down that morning and wished me good luck, took a picture together in front of the ladder truck. Man, that was one of the coolest things that I think ever happened towards the end of my career. Just to know that they all appreciated me enough to come down and do that and thank me. And like I said, they're good people. They're all still on the job. They're doing great things, but to have them come down, and I still talk to, some of them text me, like Ariel, she would text me when she got in the medic class, hey, I'm doing great, and I'll be honest with you. And I told her that the same thing. She's the last person I expected to be a paramedic when we went through EMS rookie stuff. But to have them come back and do that for me was one of my proudest moments. That was really, really cool. So the last day, it was awesome. I remember my family came down, they were all there. We walked out together. One of my favorite pictures I've ever taken with my wife was walking out of the back of that engine room holding hands. You just saw the backs of us as I'm walking out. And she says, going in the same way we came out together, right? And that's she was with me in '92 when I got hired, and she was with me in 22 when I retired. It was pretty cool. That was the emotional day. That was that hurt a lot. That was a bunch of tears and a bunch of hugs, and I had some great guys. Jimmy Lanham, Tommy Grant, Dana, Chris Galt, Tyler Buckley, Dave Briscoe, Jeff Weber was my lieutenant at the time. David just left to go to 34, but we'd spent a lot of time together. From that was an emotional experience. That was pretty tough to walk out the door the last time and know that was it. And that was that hurt. But I got to do a little goodbye over the radio. I'd worked something out with Ian St. John, who was up at communications, and he did a 5 o'clock, hey, Montgomery Truck 706, checking your status. And said, for the last time, Truck 706 signing off as the air is Captain Worton. And then it was real, right? But again, no regrets. That was a tough day. That took a little while to get over.
Now that's beautiful, man. Just all of that. And really it's a testimony to you. I mean, you can't fake that. Like when people come back to honor you and to spend time with you and do the things that you described, I mean, that's what it's all about. Yeah, that made me feel good. That, like you said, guys taking time out of their day to come down and visit and just shake my hand, wish me well, tell stupid stories. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Yeah, man. That's a testament to your career and the person that you are, and the effect you had on people. Sometimes we kind of go through this and we don't think we really affect anyone
except our immediate family. And that's not true. They see what you're doing, your example. You know, you lead by your example and your actions and the way you make people feel. And you did a good job. And at the end of it was all over. And you're moving on to something else, the next chapter.
Yep.
It's a testimony to say, hey, man, thank you. You had an effect, a positive effect on people. And I'm gonna sit here. I said, well, Russ, and I say at the end of these shows a lot of time, and I want to thank you. Job well done, brother.
Thank you,
Job
sir.
well done.
That means a lot. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now after all of that, so now you wake up the next day and it's the new chapter. So tell us about that first month of being retired.
Like?
Yeah. So I can tell you, I slept like a baby. Best sleep of my life was that first 2 or 3 weeks after I was officially retired, right? Like I said, I was a little absent captain for the last couple months, but I still knew I had to go to work. I still knew, you know, there were days and, you know, you still have all that running through your head, right? You do this every day, Tony. You know, what's shift going to look like tomorrow? What's shift going to look like when I go in? What's going on? What emails do I have to worry about? Right. Man, I slept like a baby. I slept so good. I'd go to bed at 10, 11 o'clock like normal. I'd wake up at 5:30 and I felt like I slept for 20 hours. It was awesome. And I really didn't have anything planned. You know, my life revolved around playing golf and, you know, just kind of hanging around the house. And I didn't really have a plan of what was next. But those first couple of weeks were just really good. And the thing that struck me the most is how much I didn't miss work, right? Like I didn't miss it. I didn't sit around going, man, I wish I could go to Firehouse today. And that's not a knock on anybody other than me, right? It just, I was okay. You know, I didn't miss it. Now I missed the Firehouse kitchen table. I miss, you know, that was the greatest part of every day I went to work was sitting around a kitchen table, either at lineup or dinner. I mean, you just can't beat those times, right? But, you know, I'd sit at home. And so, like I said, I retired in July. Come December, January, you know, I'm sitting at home, I'm watching TV and I see the events going on, high-rise multi-alarm fire in Silver Spring, plane crash in Gaithersburg. It's 20 degrees outside with snow and sleet. And my wife looks at me and goes, man, do you miss that? I said, no, I'm good. I'm sitting at home in my heated house, watching it on TV in shorts. I'm okay. You know, I don't miss that. So yeah, you know, my transition was pretty easy. I was good. I was good. I felt better. I lost weight. You know, my wife and I have been traveling quite a bit, as people from Facebook know. I, you know, posting all over the place. I'm enjoying the heck out of it, man. It's good. But I will say I'm enjoying it because of the fruits of our labor, right? Because of the drop program, because of the deferred comp, because of the things we've got over the years, I'm able to enjoy. I didn't have to retire July 1st and August 1st, go work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week. You know, we get a pretty decent paycheck on the first of every month. It's usually in the bank right away. And financially, we're doing okay. And that's because of, you know, I give my plug to the union and, you know, I know they get a bad rap sometimes, but man, I'm enjoying what I'm doing because of all the hard work those guys put in over the last 30 years to get me to the point where I can do what I want to do, not because I have to. Nice. So I fell into a part-time gig working at my local golf course a couple days a week. Make a little extra scratch here and there, but I get the opportunity to play golf. I'm still making a little extra money, and you know, it's perfect. And I can just say, you know, and I don't have to put in for leave. My wife and I want to go on a 10-day cruise. I just say, hey, I'm not going to be here for the next 10 days. And they say, okay. And we go. And it's everything I wanted it to be. It's good, man. It's real
good.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. Real good, man.
Excellent.
Yep. But those first weeks, man, that sleep, I'll never get that sleep again. That was just the best sleep I've ever had.
That's one of the big issues we have, man. The lack of sleep, the lack of good sleep. It adds up. And you mentioned about being a number. You're right. We are, but that's the nature of the beast, right?
Sure.
It needs to be that way because we need the department moves on.
Absolutely. And I'm sure I was that way too when I knew I was getting promoted. And, you know, I was that way too. Man, it's time for you to go. But it was just a realization that
you're on that part of it, right? You're on the other side of it.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. And you also do something with the Montgomery County Charitable Foundation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I do. Back after Master Firefighter Rick Genicourt passed away, we decided, not we, but the union decided they needed something bigger than the Members Welfare and Benefit Fund, right? It's a great thing. They were able to help out, but not being a tax deductible charitable foundation, it was hard for them to recover some of the money that they had put out, right? No problems there, but I spoke to Scott Ward and to Jeff Buttle at the time, and I said, look, it's something I'm really passionate about. I'd like to be involved in it, and they pushed forward with it. They let me take the reins. They helped me out from behind, and we got this foundation started back in, I think it was 2018, September 11th, as a matter of fact. We're doing good things. I'm still the president. I have a good board of directors behind me. I've got Dave DeVore, Marilyn Pabst, Matt Trivett, Oscar Monzone, and John Vernelson are all our board of directors, and Jeff Buttle is as well. And we're doing good things. Most of it is behind the scenes, right? A lot of it is it's privacy related, right? I don't get on Facebook and say, hey, guess what we just did for Tony Ben Cosme because he had this issues. But I think the people that we have helped appreciate what we're doing, and you know, it's all about being there for our folks. And I'm very passionate about that. It keeps me involved as well. We're doing good things. You know, and I'm very, very proud of what we've done. We'll have some stuff coming out here hopefully shortly where I'll be able to get down to the firehouses and give a kind of better idea of who we are and what we do and how people can help. But I know people know we're out there because I was telling Russ when you stepped out, Tony, that you know, I'm getting calls once or twice a week from people. Hey, I got a guy on my shift that's, you know, this happened to his family, or, you know, this person has this, and you know, we're able to help, whether it's gift cards to, you know, like DoorDash gift cards. That's our big thing, right? We help. You don't have to worry about cooking dinner. Let us get your food to the house, or hotel rooms. If somebody's, you know, got a medical emergency, their family members down at the hospital in Baltimore and they live in Pittsburgh, you know, we'll put them up in a hotel for a couple of days, small things like that. We were very active with Beth Wu, who is Master Firefighter Wu's widow.
Yes, sir.
I still talk to her extensively. We've been behind the scenes, very active with her. She's going to be an advocate for us as well. She has said she'll come out to the firehouses and talk about some of the things we've done with her. That, you know, God forbid that happens again, or when it happens again, because we know the nature of the beast. That we'll be there for you guys. We are associated with the local. We're not our own entity, so we have that backing as well. I can tell you when Fire Chief Goldstein was here, he would reach out to me as well when things were going on. So he knows we're here. I reached out to the new fire chief. He's very aware of what we're doing. He usually goes through the union first, just as a matter of policy. But he'll contact Jeff, and then they'll go directly with us. But they're very aware of what we're doing, and have reached out to us when some of the members have needed assistance. So I think that's a good thing. Yeah. So I'm very proud of what we've done, and I'm even more excited about what we can do moving forward.
That's great, man.
Yeah,
that is. And where can people find the Charitable Foundation online?
Yeah, so we're on all social media platforms. Facebook. I don't think we're on TikTok anymore, but Facebook, Instagram, MoCo Fire Foundation. You can check us out online at mcfirefoundation.org, or if you need to reach out to any of us, again, Dave DeVore, Station 10A. Marilyn Pabst is 23. I forget what shift he's on. C.
A.
A. Okay. John Vernelson is at ECC as a captain, and Oscar Monzone was last time I checked 23B.
Yes.
Or you can email me at president@mcfirefoundation.org, and we're pretty responsive. I'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Awesome.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And just kind of to land this plane.
Sure.
So now, after all of this, after your long career, after what you've been involved in now, and the time of relaxation with time with the Charitable Foundation, all the things that you've done, when you wake up and you look at yourself in the mirror, how do you feel about the guy looking back at you, and what do you say to him?
Wow. No, I'm proud of. I'm okay with where I am. I'm okay with what I've done. I have no regrets. I left the job healthy, on my own accord, which was very important to me. I think I did good things. I think I'm still doing good things. I'm proud of what I've done. I'm a huge advocate of the department, of the local, of the people. I am. Yeah, I'm good with where I am. That's a pretty tough question, but yeah, I have no regrets. I'm happy. Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
that's a pretty strong question though. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
you've done a lot, you've been through a lot, and I think you've done a lot of good work. I think,
Yeah. You
uh,
continue to do work. Yeah.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
continuing to do good work, and I actually have a story about you that I wanted to share. I
Uh-oh.
don't know if you remember this,
We can
but
edit this, right?
I actually ran my very first working fire with you.
Really?
Yes, so I had mentioned I did my rookie time at 11 on C shift, and then I got moved to 11 on B shift. And I think I had done, I don't know if it was my Kelly or whatever it was, but I had done a work sub and I was working at 11 and you were working there. Um, and obviously you were the officer on the engine. I was on the ambulance, and we had a busy day for 11 on the ambulance. Now we had run several calls. We had just sit down for dinner, and the engine was dispatched for, I think, a smoke in the area.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, do you remember
I
that one?
do. I
Yes,
do.
yes. And then it got upgraded to a working fire, and it was this big balloon frame old
Yep.
abandoned mansion that was just rocking.
Yep.
And so I was there with you guys, and kind of long story short, I mean, we were on scene because that fire was dispatched like around 8 at night, and I don't
Yep.
think we got back to the firehouse at like till maybe like 4:30 in the morning.
Yep.
And I was beat. I remember laying down in the bed saying, I hope no other calls come out because I can't move right now. Like, I'm so tired. And it must have been a few days after that, but you actually wrote me my first attaboy letter, saying that I did a good job, and I have that letter to this day.
Awesome.
Oh,
So
wow.
Very
it's
cool.
just a credit to you. Like, thank you for that. Like, that was such an encouragement to me. No, that I still have
Oh,
it to
very
this
cool.
day. So thank you for
Yeah, that
that.
was a good fire.
Yes, yes, it was.
That was what was his name? Who was driving? Wayne.
Yeah, Wayne Malcolm.
Wayne Malcolm was driving me. I don't remember who was in the bucket. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't.
that was a good fire. That was right behind 11, all the way down Sangamore at the end. Brooks
Sangamore,
Lane.
yeah.
Brooks
Mhm.
Lane, right?
Yeah, I don't remember the
Yep.
street,
I think it
but
was
yeah, it
Brooks
was
Lane.
definitely, yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, that was a good one.
So let me piggyback on that real quick, because Doug Hansen at the time was at FEI. We talked about FEI a little bit, right?
Mhm.
He knew for a fact that was an arson fire. He worked for years, I'm telling you, to prove that guy that owned that house burned it down. And I think
Mm.
it took 6 or 7 years for him to finally get that guy on charges.
Wow.
But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, so we piggyback a little bit on the work they do. That wasn't that he took. It was like 6 years, if I remember correctly, to put that guy on charges for arson in that house.
Mm.
Yep.
Wow.
But
Wow,
anyway, yeah,
that's
that was
awesome.
a good. That was I didn't remember you were with me, Russ. I'm sorry, but that was yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Very
that's all
weirdo
good.
stories.
Yes. So if people wanted to get in touch with you after this, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
Through my cell phone, and I don't mind putting that out there. It's 240-281-7241. Text or call. I always have it with me. In fact, you probably saw me checking it 100 times while I was on your podcast. But yeah, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me, whether it's for a charitable foundation or just because you want to say hi.
Sounds good, man.
Again, I'm
Gotcha.
also on Facebook. I don't do much of the other social medias. I don't, but I am on Facebook. But yeah, I'd love to hear from some people that I think that's the biggest thing that I've talked to some retirees about, and I'm guilty of it as myself. When we leave, we're kind of gone, right?
Yeah.
We don't. I don't reach out. I mean, I got a lot of guys that reach out to me, and I kind of get involved in other stuff and don't reach out to them. But there's some guys out there that are doing some really good stuff. Tim Brown runs an Eastern Shore Pots thing,
Yes.
not just for retirees, but man, he does a good job. There's 50 to 60 people that show up to these things. Some retired, some still working, but it's a good group of people. Warnie Stevens runs the one in Frederick. It's the first Wednesday of every month at the Elks. That's a combination of Frederick and Montgomery County retirees. But again, they have a large group of people that show up. I know there's one. In fact, my wife and I are going to Myrtle Beach in the end of September. Stacy Stone runs the South Carolina Pots. So they're having a luncheon when I go down there as well. And that's, the Donnie and Larry Simmons, Jose Gutierrez, Doug Dyer, Stacy Stone, a bunch of other people. And then Darlene Faulkner does one in Florida. They have a Florida pot. So there's stuff out there, and it's not just for retirees, man. If you guys get the opportunity to go, I used to take my rookies up to the one in Frederick so they could talk to some of these guys that, everybody's heard stories about Warnie Stevens, right? Probably the greatest guy I've ever met in my entire life. But how many people left have had the opportunity to work with him? Not many. They always hear the stories, right? Oh, why do you carry that in your running coat, Captain? Oh, because one day I ran a call with Warnie Stevens and he told me about, he used to carry a hockey puck in his running gear. The story I always tell is Warnie Stevens used to carry a $20 bill, a pack of cigarettes, and a hockey puck. Why are you carrying that, Chief? Well, $20 bill, because if we're on a fire at 2:30 in the morning and one of my guys wants a Gatorade and there's no canteen here, I'm going to give him $20 to go to 7-Eleven and get him a Gatorade. Everybody back then smoked, but everybody forgot him on the nightstand next to you in the bunk room. So he always had an extra pack of cigarettes. And he carried a hockey puck because his theory was he could throw a hockey puck through a high window easier than he could with a pipe pole or a Halligan or something to try to eliminate a backdraft, right? Mm-hmm. So I always carried just something I picked up from him. I always carried the same things in my pocket, except I had a golf ball instead of a hockey puck. But, I'd bring some of the rookies up to the Pots luncheon so they could talk to some of these guys, hear the stories, meet the guys that they heard stories about that I always talked about. And I think that's something that, if we could get back into, maybe bring some of the retirees down to 28 for dinner one night. Just sit down and bullshit, just talk. Oh, you're Captain Worton, man. I heard about you, or man, you're an idiot, or whatever, Yeah. But yeah, I think there's a lot that those stories can offer, and that's why I really appreciate what you guys are doing, because I just think hearing from some of these folks that people have always heard the names and the stories, but never put a voice to the face or whatever, I think is a huge benefit to this generation of the fire department. And I commend you wholeheartedly for what you guys are doing. I think it's phenomenal, and I hope it continues. And I am honored to be a part of it. And I really thank you for allowing me to do this.
No, thank you. It's about the institutional knowledge, man. And it gets lost, man. It's all about passing down experiences and a lot of stuff that people are going through now as their career. Believe me, people have gone through it before. They can help you through it. Yeah.
If you think about it, and I'll stop my blabbing for a little bit, but there are still guys around. Sorry about the dogs. There are still guys around that were involved when policies were made, right? Why do we have the elevator policy we have? Because of an incident in Bethesda, right? Some of those guys are still around to talk about it. Why do we have the gas leak policy we have? Gaithersburg. Still a lot of people around from that explosion. Why do we have some of the policies we have? Not just because of the bad things that people did, but because of the events we ran. Not many people are still working that were involved in those incidents, but they're still around and can tell you the story about, I was standing there next to the engine when I saw the gas man running out, and I said, oh shit, that's not good, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. But I think you said it best, Tony, the institutional knowledge that you can get from some of these people, just reach out to them, and they'll love to tell those stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, man. We stand on the shoulders of the men and women who've came before us and did this job, long before we were even thinking about the fire service. So, and And Marc Worton, you are definitely included among that. So again, thank you so much for sitting down to talk with us. It's been a pleasure.
It's an honor. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
brother. Thank
yes,
you.
sir.
Thanks for listening to the When the Smoke Clears podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Just search for the When the Smoke Clears podcast. Or you can email us at whenthesmokeclears8@gmail.com. That's whenthesmokeclears and the number 8 @gmail.com.